The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, welcome to our webinar today. Today's session is how to simplify, building efficient and budget forecast models. This is part 2 of a 3-part series that we're holding this week here at Velocio, where we're highlighting some of the benefits of utilizing financial reporting, budgeting solutions, commonly referred to as corporate performance management. Our approach here at Velocio is to offer a choice of different solutions to best fit your organization. So this week we're holding 3 separate sessions. Yesterday was BI 360. Today we're going to be highlighting Adaptive Insights. And tomorrow we're going to be at 11 to noon Eastern, we're going to be highlighting De facto. I'm Terry Ginley. I'm the director of our analytics team. And today we're going to go ahead and kick this session off. We have 2 presenters today. First being Judson Parsons. Judson is with Velocio, and he is a solution architect and consultant who will be highlighting some of the ways to benefit from a solution such as Adaptive or one of the other solutions, as well as we have Randy Slomian. I'm sorry, Randy. We practiced this earlier. Slomian. And Randy is a senior solution consultant with Adaptive, and he'll be showing us some hands-on ways that we utilize the solution to benefit your business. So with that, I'll pass it over to Judson, and he'll give us a quick overview of some of the advantages of using a corporate performance management solution such as Adaptive.
Thanks, Terry, and good morning, everyone. As Terry mentioned, my name is Judson Parsons. I'm a solution architect here at Velocio, and really excited to have you guys on the line today as we take a look at Adaptive Insights. And the reason for that is I've been working with Adaptive pretty much exclusively as the only software I've been working with Velocio for the past 1.5 years. I've seen firsthand the value that Adaptive has provided our clients, and really think that you guys will see that value today in the webinar and during the presentation that Randy gives a bit later. I want to spend the next, hopefully about 5 minutes, really kind of talking about some of the problems that Adaptive Insights has helped solve for our clients, as well as just giving a quick, brief overview of the software. So when we're on discovery calls with clients that are looking to implement a solution like Adaptive or one of the other CPM solutions that we have, some of the common things that we hear pretty much from everyone are just some of the following. So one, your budgeting and forecasting process is slow, cumbersome. Generally, you have multiple Excel spreadsheets that are floating around. You're probably sending out templates through email. There's no real version control and definitely no workflow. Your time is spent on manual processes, so basically tracking down those spreadsheets, right, bringing them back, trying to consolidate them into one master file. Really, your time is just spent on manual processes and not really on the actual analysis of the data. And finally, in this day of age, almost all of our clients have multiple systems. And with limited access, you generally don't have seat licenses for everyone in the organization. And it just takes extra time to find out some of the insights and the information that you need from those multiple systems. And it's hard to actually build kind of a single source of the truth that everyone has access to. Those are just a few of the common problems we see and some of the problems that Adaptive Insights helps solve. So our clients are coming to us, right? And there has to be a better way to do this, which is actually kind of how Adaptive Insights was originally created. Rob Hull, who's the founder of Adaptive Insights, was a CFO, and back in the early 2000s, was experiencing these issues, and he himself also said there has to be a better way. So he actually ended up finding adaptive insights. And I think it's a pretty powerful message, because the way the software has been fundamentally designed from the beginning is that it was built by a finance user for finance users. So that first problem we were talking about, really where your budgeting forecasting processes are slow. Just here's some statistics that are kind of backing up that that point, and just letting you know that if your forecasting process is slow, your budgeting process is slow, you're not alone. Association for Finance Professionals and Adaptive Insights completed a survey and found that on average it takes about 77 days to complete an annual budget, 20 days to prepare a forecast, and 83% of the time is spent on non-strategic tasks, non-value added tasks. So it's one of those things where you're spending so much time creating a budget, and after 77 days to complete a budget, almost 3 months in all of our rapidly changing industries, your budget is almost irrelevant by the time it's actually finished, leaving your plans, forecasts out of date, etc. Let me move. Sorry, I'm moving one thing. All right. So the challenges that you're facing, they're not unique. As I mentioned, all organizations are facing those challenges. And of course, as you know, running a business, all businesses plan. It requires predicting your future performance, right? The elements that are part of that plan are going to be similar across whatever your organization is, right? It's going to be sales, finance, HR. You need to plan your marketing and your operations, even your executive team. All of those elements, not only are they're unique and they're individual, just in the way they naturally function, but they all also are all connected, right? They all have inputs that ultimately need to come together in the financial plan. So the way that you're currently probably budgeting with Excel spreadsheets going out, or maybe even older systems, sending out emails, it really naturally creates a siloed approach that really isolates each business, when we all know that the business doesn't operate that. It's all one fully flowing unit where your sales is affecting marketing, is affecting finance, et cetera, et cetera. So the consolidation that typically occurs in Excel, the collaboration of all these inputs that essentially rolls into finance's plan through email, makes it difficult to change assumptions, to coordinate different inputs from different areas of the business. And you can even forget about doing what if scenarios. It's hard enough building a budget and building those forecasts. So all of those elements combined really lead to what we would call static planning, which is really a compromise for your business. It's not collaborative, it's not comprehensive. The models are all unique. They're not really flowing in together. It's slow to do your scenario planning, let alone rolling forecast, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time, as we mentioned, by the time your plan is done, generally speaking, it's already out of date. So what is the answer to static planning? What is the opposite of static planning? And that's what we would call active planning. So it's a planning process that really drives the business and can really enable continuous improvement throughout your organization. So what active planning really means is that everything is connected, just like a well-oiled machine. As one input changes in a particular sales or finance model, it can affect marketing, it can affect your strategic planning. Everything works together smoothly and continuously. So some of the challenges, right, of active planning. It's a great idea, it's a great concept. The first challenge with active planning, it's hard to coordinate among stakeholders. It's hard to build complex models, create a single source of the truth, and it's hard to update plans quickly and to actually keep them up to date. So in order to achieve that, you need something that's going to be collaborative, you need something that's going to be comprehensive, and you need a tool that allows you to continuously update your plan and keep things up to date. So in order to do that, you're also going to need a tool that is easy to use. So easy to use to get business users, not only finance, but other active participants in your process, a tool that's easy for them to use and really collaborative around the planning process. It needs to be powerful so that you can actually build rich, sophisticated, interconnected models, just like you can in Excel. And based on real business data. I think that's actually key here as well. It needs to be based off that single source of the truth that we talked about, with actual comprehensive and relevant data that you're actually able to bring in from your other operating systems, whether that be your ERP system, your HR system, CRM system, maybe even other operational systems, etc. And it needs to be fast so that finance can adapt to the plans quickly, keep them up to date, and really allow you to spend more time on the why behind the numbers as opposed to the how. So the adaptive suite has been actually designed for active planning. It's purpose built for planning, analytics, consolidation, and even reporting. It's been built in the cloud. It's an in-memory planning analysis engine. So this is important because what the in-memory actually means is that your data is always fresh and accurate. When you make one change through a model, it actually syncs to anywhere else that information is being used in another model and actually even your reports. The platform is built for data integration. So there's also a purpose-built data integration platform that allows you to very easily automate data integration with your systems like GL, CRM, payroll, any sort of other operational systems you need. And as I mentioned earlier, since Adaptive is designed by finance for finance users, it really gives you that easy interface that allows you to manage those integrations yourself without the need for a lot of outside help from IT. It allows you, it has a lot of, the platform is built to enable collaboration in actually meaningful ways by using what they have as the process management, the process tracker, as well as workflow. It makes managing the tasks of your planning and forecasting processes easy to use. And then it gives you all the tools that you actually would need in your planning budgeting process to model, to monitor things like your operational KPIs and seeing some financial dashboards, consuming that data visually. And then of course it gives you the ability to do ad hoc reporting and analyze variance analysis, drill into your data to really actually tell the story behind it. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Randy.
All right, well, thank you, Justin. And good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending on the time zone that you're in. I am Randy with Adaptive. I've been with Adaptive for 4 years. I've been a software side of business for 20 years, having spent 10 with Hyperion Oracle and 7 with IBM Cognos. And before that, I've been everything from a data entry clerk to controller of a $1 billion segment of an organization. So I don't want to brag, but I've seen it all. I go back to VisitCalc, Green Bar days, even such. So I've seen a lot of transitions and such. And of course, now my job here is to show you all a little flavor of what Adaptive can do to help you. And of course, any questions that you may have, I'm more than happy to share anything. The concentration today is going to be mostly on more of an interaction, an end user type of use of it. But with Adaptive, being an administrator is just as easy as being an end user. There is no coding in Adaptive. You click buttons. It's all built in the application. You allow or disallow what you want. Also, security, you can choose who can do what and who can see what. all at the click of the buttons. No formulas necessary to set up that type of information. And that fits well into the easy, powerful, fast scenario, if you will, why we are purpose-built for that. So to get started, as you go to do simplify, create very powerful but simpler and more flexible budgets, there's some things that you really have to have up front. And one of those is one place for everything. We've all heard it, that one version of the truth. Well, it's not a myth. It can be a reality out there. And Adaptive brings that together because we can absolutely integrate with any data source and pull it into Adaptive. So all of your data is in one place, whether that's transactional data, relational style data, like personnel, we'll see some of that, or cube type data to where you can slice and dice very quickly and easily. And of course, we give you the pass to everything, so it's very simple to be able to pull any information at any point in time. And we'll see a lot of that flexibility here. Getting started, I've opened up in our integrated dashboarding component. This is part of Adaptive. You can choose to use it or not. It does not take any extra setup. When you set the Adaptive database up, it's ready to use. And like everything in Adaptive, it's drag and drop. We provide the types of displays that you're looking at here, as well as it's a drag and drop. You choose the display type, you drag the metrics on it or the accounts, and you're off and running and such. And why is that important in a budgeting process? Well, budgeting usually starts, of course, with review, monitoring, and analysis, especially if you want to become an active planner. You need to be constantly maintaining, managing, and moving the budgets or the forecasts as the business is moving and such. Run as many what-ifs as you want to be able to run. All of that is possible here in Adaptive. And what I'm going to start with here is just some examples. When you do budgeting, it's not just about finance, right? So you may set your budget, and you might have certain ways that you're looking at certain things here, and all of that is available in Adaptive, depending on how you configure it. But you also might want to have a quick view of, how is my business going to be coming in? So as I set the budget, that's a nice baseline, but now things are going to happen. Is my pipeline going to change that? And of course, this comes generally from, different types of systems, something like Salesforce or such. It's all in one place in Adaptive. Also, I may want to check my finances. Do we have the positions? Do I have the cash? Do I have the loan availabilities, the reserves to match what our customers might be looking at, from a pipeline perspective? Moving that in, the link, of course, then moves into production. Can we make the things, or can we inventory them quick enough? What's our lead time? All of that. Of course, then the last piece is sales. How are we, or can we sell what it is we need to do based on all of the other drivers that we've clicked down the lane here. And as we look at this information, of course, we may want to summarize a lot of that into one particular area, and we can do that as well. So the key here is all the data is in one place. That's what makes this happen. It's not a separate dashboard tool that you have to connect and worry about a separate interface to work with. It makes dashboarding very easy and very fast to distribute. Now, of course, dashboards are they need to be interactive. They can't just be a picture. They will work to a certain point, but there's always, everything always leads to the next question. Where does this number come from? So you should be drillable. And now this should showcase how everything links together, if you will. The data is all here. I'll just concentrate on our revenue number. So here I might want to understand what customers are driving that revenue, and we can quickly and easily see that. I may pick a customer and say what products is that customer purchasing. It's one way to look at the data. I may want to be able to ask that same question from the other direction. What are we selling, and who's buying what from there? And we can, of course, do that as well. So a perfect 360 view of the information. But sometimes you may want things more than graphically presented. You might want to do a little more digging, see a little more comparison capabilities. Well, by simply clicking, any good system should really have this capability, is to allow you to seamlessly explore. And now notice we're seeing some more tabular data, some informational types of things. And as I start to follow the data, or what we frequently call having a conversation with the data, by drilling, I let the data tell me where my opportunities are. And so in this case, I can drill down, I can find all kinds of information I can keep drilling all the way down to the root. And we'll actually see even formula tracing capabilities here in just a moment. In this particular case, I have some sales and I want to go in and now actually start to change my forecast, change my budget based on some of that other information we may have garnered from the dashboard information that we were just looking at. So to do that, we also provide the links. And any good system should have these links seamless to where you can go. As a user, shouldn't have to think about where I have to go find something. It should be right here for me. And so here we have the product revenue sheet. Now also in any sheet that is designed correctly for users, they should almost be self-formatting so that there's consistency. This is part of what makes Adaptive in particular very easy to use is the sheets are the same relatively for everyone. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't change things as an individual user because we do give flexibility for them to change time periods, comparisons, even adding spark lines so we can see some visual trends right on the page. All of that's possible to do from a user perspective. Now, in this case, we also see green numbers. I'm looking at some certain dates, and we can see how it's coming out. Well, what's driving this is my version. And right now, because I was looking at actuals from the dashboard, it's brought me in my actuals on my selector here. But here's where I can change a version. Now, for this example, we're going to work in the working budget. But notice you can set up a version for anything. And you can also set up them for any time frame. So it makes it very easy and adaptive to compare and control a short-term budget right alongside a long-term budget. So you determine how far back in history you want to have it look. 3 years of history, 5 years of history, go back to the year 2000. And in the future, you could just easy to set up a 1-year budget as it is a 20-year budget. You change the calendar. And everything that's all our information, if you will, is stored in versions. So when we go to do comparisons, once you have them set up, you can compare any version to any other version. So in this case, I'm going to change my version now to my working budget. And you'll notice that it's changed. I now have some black numbers. Green are historical. Black are things that we can change. And in Adaptive, the sheets talk to the user so they can see quickly where they're at. Now, in this case, I'm going to actually drill down to my department. From a security perspective, I'm an admin, so I see everything. But if I could only see Sales North as my department, that is all that would be on my list. It would have automatically opened up here for me. But notice now, too, we have some other permission type and informational things that are showing up. So here we have white cells is where I can enter information. Gray cells, I can read the information, but not write back. And if you notice here, we have a lot of different elements. Some come from drivers, separate tables or sheets, if you will. Some things are calculated. We have targets, all kinds of things that we can bring in. You define what you want in the rows and columns here, basically, as you configure your system. Very flexible. They will always sort of look like this. Purple triangles, we'll see formulas more in a minute, but when I click on it, we can see the formula, and they're not Excel type formulas. They're not location-based. They don't say cell C something times D, something with a spreadsheet name attached to it. It actually tells us that this is units times price. And anything that you may click on, we'll see that, and we'll actually see how we can file the calculations even in just a moment. But for this example, how easy is it to come in and manipulate and enter data? As a user, I might want to come in and change this particular budget. Now, you notice that as I hovered on that, there was a box that popped up. You could put comments in here, just like in Excel. A difference in Adaptive is that the comments also show up on the reports. You do not have to go through and hunt for them from a report or anywhere. If it's in the data field and a note is attached, it will show up for you, making it very easy, improving the collaboration and the informational capabilities of the system, all integrated. So to enter data, just like any system, we can come in and maybe I want to up this forecast to 2,000 units per period. Just like you would think, you just type the number in. As you make a change, it will show you that it has been changed and not yet saved by turning blue. You can copy the information forward. Now notice copy to the end. I brought fiscal year 2019 in as well, This is a 2-year version. Not only did it change the current, but it changed the future. This is a big time saver if you want to just broadcast things out depending on the time. By simply choosing to the end, that means the end of the version. But sometimes you might want to do something for just 1 year, and of course we can do that as well by just selecting year. You can do increments or decrements. We'll do a 10% period over period growth for this example, and now it's automatically adjusted my numbers. You can even, if you want to, grab one or a range of numbers and adjust it. There's lots of flexibility in how you can adjust numbers in Adaptive, and all very easy to learn from a user perspective on here. So that's great bottom-up budgeting, but what if I need to have this end year number as 50,000? Well, I can actually go to the yearly total, type in the 50,000, and now it's going to ask me, how do I want to spread that down to the time periods I have adjusted? This is the monthly model that I'm showing today. You can go down to week, day, you define your time periods. It's also asking me here now at this point, how do I want to break it back? The top 6 are out of the box. You can even write your own custom formulas to allow you to drive information back based on any kind of algorithm that you want to write. And because it's version specific, you can take this account, I could take my units for this version and do it along one methodology, and then simply switch versions and do units along a completely different methodology in the other version. And of course I can compare and then manage and monitor those over time to see which one is actually performing better, all with, giving you insight into your next budget or forecast being that much more intelligent based on what you're learning by having as many comparisons as you possibly can. Data points, lots of data points are a good thing. And in Adaptive, it doesn't take forever to develop those data points. And it's just right there for you. It's all in one place. So in this case, I'm just going to do proportional breakout because I like the 10% growth. And there it is, and it adjusted my number down. Now notice that it also changed my spark line here. So another thing that takes a lot of time generally and slows down how many iterations you can do and accuracy and such is, what if I now wanted to come in and put some seasonality in? And I wanted to raise this by so many units and drop this by so many units just to get my seasonality in. And then I'd have to the whole time looking at my total to make sure I'm hitting my 50,000 units. You get into some circular calculations sometimes with doing that. But we boil that down to a simple just drag and drop process. I can actually, on the spark line, just start to build my own seasonality curve, even without numbers. I can just build this any way I want. Maybe we want some drop down at the end of the year, whatever that may be. And you'll notice how it's changing our numbers here at the end. And once I build this curve in place, actually I'm going to drop this one down too, I can now come in and correct it for the 50,000, re-enter that, do the proportional breakback, and I now have my new budget number, my new forecast, my new whatever it might be. It's there. It was graphically built, automatically adjusted based on my end number. It makes it very fast and very easy to enter and change a budget. And now if I save this information, no system should be complete without a great audit trail. And in Adaptive, I mean, you guys are all probably like me. You forget tomorrow what you did today, and you need to be reminded. That's one thing where the cell notes can come in. But also, if we open up the Cell Explorer here, and that's just a right mouse click, by the way, we have the View Audit Trail, and it will actually show me the history of what changed, what it changed from and to. Because I have a note on here, it's also showing me if the note changed, what it changed from and to. So, and it also shows me who did it and when they did it. And everything in Adaptive is audit trailed in this manner. If this was a formula on here, it would show me what the formula changed from and to as well. It's all there in the system, and it's all user accessible based on permissions. And you can run on-demand audit trail reports, which means that I could say, well, what did Randy do today anywhere? Or what did these 5 departments do for their expenses? Things like that. It's all there. And then another further capability in Adaptive is, of course, we do also have workflow. So from an approval process, the different levels, if you will, or the different people, as we open this up here, we can see that there are different statuses that are monitored. If we look at sales north, this was rejected. And now if I wanted to resubmit this by simply resubmitting it, it'll change the icon for me. It'll put a new stamp on it, and it just emailed my approver saying that you need to see this. It also automatically locks me out from making any changes so that they're not trying to approve a moving target. All that's just out of the box. It's available to be able to be used. One other element on this is we can even go deeper to look at actual processes. And what I mean by that, and I'll actually did a demo yesterday, I didn't move everything back over, but I'll move a couple elements over here. And you'll notice that we have a dashboard of our process. You can have multiple processes. You can assign people individual tasks to complete, give them a time date stamp, and then of course the dashboard is going to monitor that. And even within here, you can collaborate. So by opening that up and opening up the notes, we can actually see a contained email string on the subject matter. No reason to email things and such. So again, that's another way to make budgeting highly collaborative, easy to follow, easy to understand, and it keeps phone, foot, and email traffic down to a minimum, if you will. So there's some examples of what Adaptive can do here and such. A couple other examples. Here we entered in some product information. I could go through the dashboard and drill into expenses, but you'll see here too, we also have our main menu. And I'm going to actually open up our expenses here because I have a little bit of work to do on my expenses budget as well. Now, often we have a variety of accounts that are not always the same type of data. And a classic example of that is if I roll this up, salaries. And notice my salaries for my department for this version are grayed out. I'm looking at a summary total. In this example, we actually budget by person. And so since I don't have the people on this particular sheet, this is showing me the end result, as are all of my commissions and bonuses, because when I enter on my personnel, I need to calculate a variety of things. But in addition to that, there are also other accounts that are frequently driven from other elements. And I'm going to concentrate on our telephone expense here, because here now we have actual drivers. My telephone expense is driven. And as a user, if I look at that number, my question is, where does that number come from? And now clicking on it, I can actually see where it's coming from. It's a FTE count times an assumption, which is a driver table. It's all that, it's being maintained and managed on its own area, but we can reference it, well here into any formula. But also notice it's not location based. So if anything changes, it never breaks the formula. They always work. We can write it one time. We do not have to copy and paste our formulas to every cell on every sheet that uses them. It makes it very simple to have the centralized formulas, much less maintenance and no impact on accuracy, if you will, of formulas as things are changing in the models. The other thing you'll notice from a user perspective is you can actually write comments on the formulas. So you can tell your users or remind yourself of what you did and why you did it here, if you will. So again, that if anybody that clicks on this that has permissions to see it, it makes it very easy to understand where the number came from. Now, as a user, that's step one. Now I want to know, the next question is, how much per head and how many FTEs? And so by simply going into the Cell Explorer, this is one of my personal things, is how I can trace, personal favorite things, how I can trace the actual calculation. And you're noticing that it's showing the value of every step of the calculation. If this is a 20-step if statement, nested if statement, I would have 20 numbers on here. It's that simple. And because they're blue, that means I have permissions actually to launch in and understand what they are. For this example, I don't need to go change the $70 per head that I'm being charged. I'm happy with that. It's kind of out of my control anyway. It's a corporate standard, if you will. But the next question is 6.7. 0.7, that's interesting. Who am I being charged? Well, now by simply clicking on that, it's going to follow the breadcrumbs, and it's actually going to show me, and this is permissions based, by the way. If you can't see salary, you wouldn't see this, but it's now actually showing me the people I'm being charged with and the values. And in this case, we'll concentrate on William Clark. He's 0.7, because I just learned something that's going to change that. And now I want to be able to go and change that. So like we did when we came in from the dashboard and the product sales, I have the link now to personnel planning. And the thing to think about here as I'm clicking on this, what we're doing as we're drilling down this path is we are moving from one type of data to another type of data. So HR data, and by the way, this could be contracts, fixed assets, it doesn't matter. You determine the columns of the information you want to gather, and then the formulas, the business rules, the lookup tables for values are all done uniquely for each one of those elements so that this all ties together. Because what we're doing here is we're gathering information, and I say information, that needs to get converted to financial and statistical data. So things like I can put a name in, and I can maybe drive a compensation package or a benefits package from a certain title. Taxes, when I go to select that, I can drive to the proper state so that all my calculations are done correctly. Notice things like a start and end date. That allows me to come in and model. When does a new person start? When do they leave? We all have personnel additions and subtraction exercises that we have to go through. This is a very simple thing to come in and just make a calendar change in Adaptive, and it will adjust that all for you. And remember, it's by version. So I can come in and I can load this data from my HR system and then leverage it to set it all up. But now I can go in and I can model things. And what if I change a raise date? Or what if somebody leaves? Or what if their salary changes from this to this? Or their department changes? You can easily and freely model personnel type of data in Adaptive and never have to worry about compromising your source systems for any reason. They're not set up to be doing budgeting and planning and what-ifing generally. You never want to cut a wrong paycheck for somebody because you're what-ifing. So as we go through here, the reason I'm concentrating on William Clark is he has multiple line items. This is his anchor, his home department, sets his state and his benefits and such, but he is then allocated across departments. This could be across projects, activities, tasks, anything that you would want to set up. In this example, it's project or it's departmental. And now as we come in, notice that I have my department and it's 70%. And I know that that's only supposed to be 20%, and because of some changes that we had, and this is going to be 60% for this department. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to copy it all the way out to the end. Notice that this is a month by month or a period by period capability, so I could change it for certain periods just depending on what happens. Highly flexible, because the business changes can be highly flexible. Now when I save this information, we have now just impacted, and we'll see the impact on our expenses sheet again in just a second. But before I do that, behind the scenes is where we're calculating all of the different account information. And as a user, I can see that as well. And for this example, we'll concentrate on like the FICA calculation. Notice that these are all the, on the left, these are all the potential accounts. Pardon me, my mouse is clicking here. All the potential accounts that we could have based on how we fill in the blanks as we're adding a new person. And notice Social Security for the first 3 months, it is what it is, and then it goes up in April. Didn't highlight it, but that's because we had a corporate raise date in April. It automatically incremented it, and incremented my salary, incremented everything else. Now notice as we come out to the end of the year, the month of November, we exceed the limit. That limit is a driver table. We're just, typical math. We're comparing actual salary to the cumulative. If it's under, do the math based on that calculation, on the percentage for the FICA. This is a partial. It knows that it's a partial calc. Notice in December, it stopped the calculation, and then it reset in January. And then, of course, if we follow the next year out, then there's our new corporate raise impact, everything. It's all there. These accounts are then literally mapped back to our financial and statistical accounts. So we're compiling it here. This is the information that will show up back here. in my expenses sheet. And to show that, if we notice that we have $469 for our telephone expense now, but I kind of wanted to concentrate on the salaries up here, I'm going to just refresh this sheet. Because in Adaptive, as soon as you update, everything is impacted. I just impacted my cash flow, my balance sheet, any P&L, any report in the system. It's all been changed appropriately. But notice now that that went from 39,000 to 40,000. If you looked at all the numbers, my commissions may have changed, my benefits changed, all of that changed. And if we come down to our telephone expense, we now see that that's $434. And if I simply want to validate what I just did, I can come back in, I can see it's now 6.2, and a quick click can show me that it's 0.2 now for William Clark. So that's an example of how things are tied together, driver-based components, one element can drive another, how we can work easily between data types to structure any type of scenario that you need to have for your forecast. Personnel moving to expenses, bringing my revenues in, all the while just having it all come in automatically, making it very easy for users to follow this between the white cells and the gray cells and the formula indicators, the blue numbers, very simple to use. Now, the last part I'll cover here today is some of the reporting. This has been concentrating on going in and making a change to the budget and such, but now I want to do some more monitoring. And so, of course, the dashboards are one way to do that, but I'm going to switch here now to some reports and just give a quick flavor of a couple of the output mechanisms, if you will. So you can put reports in any kind of a folder that you would like, a variety of things, favorites. You can, when you create a report, you can keep it to yourself, or you can share it and even decide who you want to share it with. It's just part of the save feature. I'm going to open up a variance report here, just as an example. And we notice that from a user perspective, first, how do you use a report and what information does it contain? Well, of course, it's going to be drillable. And if I wanted to understand all my payroll, maybe I want to drill deeper into that. Well, I can drill in, and it, of course, will drive the next drilled report layer in here, all in the context of the report. So now I'm seeing by department how my salaries are. You're very quick and easy to do comparisons. And if you notice the header here, I'm looking at my actuals versus my budget. Got a variance where we're having it come back. This is just fonting and formatting, very similar to Excel for all the alerting and such that goes on here with that. I can also explore, drill in from my reports as well. So here, maybe I notice that my airfare, I have a variance between my actuals and my budget, and I might want to understand, well, what invoices, what trips were done here. Clicking on it and opening up the Cell Explorer, I can now drill into the transactions. And you can choose what you want to allow users to be able to drill into this level or not. But now notice that we have a whole list of actual invoices that we can come in and do our research. And of course, as a user, you can even come in and by simply hitting a plus sign, I might want to further limit my amounts greater than or equal to $500. And by doing that, it will only bring back the numbers, the invoices, if you will, that pertain to, what my interest level is here. So very seamless drill through, passes all the parameters from where I was. It's a very smart drill through, if you will. So those are some of the ways that we can look at it. And now the fact that I may have found something, right on the report, I can actually add notes. And if we notice here, my display option right now is off to the right. And if I click on that, of course, I can see all the notes that have been put in there or have them down lower. But also in adaptive reports, you can show them in line if you wanted to. Sometimes it makes it easier to read them and understand them. Or you may want to show them as footnotes if that's how you wish to print them. Because, of course, now I can do an export. And I can export to Excel or PDF, and the notes will go with that for me if I wish as well. And what I want to do is actually, I want to pop these over back into the column, because, of course, this is a parameter-driven report. And if you remember, I mentioned that cell notes can transfer in. Well, in this view, I don't have any cell notes directly on any of these numbers, but if I change to my profit center and rerun the report, watching the bottom of the report, we now see that there is a cell note that is showing up. It clearly says it. It takes it in consideration for us. And of course, it's under my equipment. There's my index, if you will. And then, of course, if I click on this, I can see the whole note. I'm in my Cell Explorer at this point. I can do other things with it, all from the report. Now, as a user, you might want to change this report a little bit for your own purposes, and that's highly possible. Maybe you want to make this look more like a P&L. How do you do that? Adaptive is drag and drop. And what we have here now is the editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate the library. We do have search that I could just type in revenues if I wanted to, but these are my revenues. I can cherry pick them. I can bring them in one at a time. I could bring them in expanded if I wanted to. But the key here, I just drag and drop what I want, place it where I want. Another thing that I might want to add is a variance calculation. Since I don't have it, I just have a variance percentage. Difference, drag it across, place it where you want it. If you don't like the name it assigned, you can easily change the name. You can change if it's percent or value, even change the signage, depending if you're loading negatives in for some things and such. You can change how it calculates. This is typical Excel type of fonting and formatting where you can do conditional things. Here now, if we hit apply and I rerun the report, we now have a new report that I can save to myself. I can send out to someone. Notice it starts with revenue now. It has the variance column. And if I click on this, it's drillable immediately. The value here is if you add 5 new accounts next month through the integration, we're going to load those in from your source. They're going to automatically show up in the reports, in the sheets, everything. So the amount of maintenance you have to do, even if your source systems are highly changeable, is minimal in Adaptive. So that's our web reporting capabilities. Now we also know that everybody still reports in Excel. And here's a value proposition that I don't think anybody else really brings to the table. We don't make you throw the reports out and rebuild them for Adaptive. We can actually leverage what you have. So just think of this as being one of your existing reports today. And you've got Excel formulas, and you've obviously done some fonting and formatting in here and such. But you now want to make this more repeatable, and you just want to bring data in from Adaptive for certain areas. So in this case, to bring this information in, I'm going to, again, navigate to my accounts. I know where they're at. I could search for these again as well. This is the same interface that we saw in the reports because it comes from the same data set. There's no other layer that manages this at all. What I've done is I highlighted the destination. I'm going to just highlight the accounts I want to bring over, drag and drop them anywhere in this area. And on the add-in here, if you will, I'm going to refresh that. And now it brought the numbers in. Everything else is intact. Any fonting and formatting was automatically still in place. This is an interactive sheet. So you're in a meeting. Somebody might say, what does my department look like? You can change it. Or you might be in a higher level meeting and say, we want to reorganize. What do these two areas look like together? You can easily mix and match anything that you want in Adaptive or from Adaptive onto your presentation here in Excel, and it will work just fine. Now notice too, before I run this one more time, this is the whole book. So we have charts, we have a cash flow, we have a balance sheet. Next month comes along, I want to update this report. How do I do that? In Adaptive, you don't have to hunt through archives, copy the folders off. We use the same template. We just come here, we change the date, just roll it up, and now I'm going to actually refresh all the sheets. And as soon as this processes, we notice now that the date's changed because it rolled up the 6 months. It knows about the time because the data is coming from Adaptive. If we look at my charts, they have now updated. My balance sheet is updated. My cash flow is updated. The whole book is updated. And because this is actually going to Adaptive, and how do I know it's going to Adaptive? I can click on here, Office Connect. It will take me to my Cell Explorer. So even right from Excel, I can come in and I can make, I can do my research. I can drill into the details right from Excel. It will pass me through to Adaptive automatically. I can go make a forecast change like we did earlier, come back, hit refresh, and see the impacts on this report of my forecast change. So very powerful, very easy, very fast, right within Excel. Now I'm going to save this because for those of you that may do PowerPoints, and we all know the pain of this. Notice here I have the month of March, You get ready to go into a presentation to the board or wherever, whoever it may be, internal or external, and you get a last minute change. And we all just cringe when that happens because it's a hard process and it's definitely rife with errors. You got to make sure you get the right stuff going. Well, in Adaptive, all I need to do is come in and hit refresh. And if you watch the screens, mostly the panel on the left, you'll now see that all 17 slides have been updated to the new time frame. There's my P&L. It automatically updates for me. So now once again, not only can I handle a last minute change, but I can be in that meeting. I can make a what if change. I can immediately come back here, hit refresh, and see how that impacts it. And the same thing within a board type of book. This is using Microsoft Word. This is all typical. And again, we all know the pains of these. And this isn't, these are really bad on the last minute because, you know, numbers like this 8138 might be 10 places in the report. You have to find all 10. Also, things like the qualifiers. You've got to find them. You've got to normalize the sign. Well, in Adaptive, if we set this up one time by simply going to the Office Connect and refreshing, and this will take a minute for it to come back. It does a lot of work here. And I have my track changes turned on, which is actually an excellent tool because it is also going to show me what changed from the report it's generating now compared to the old report. It's going to lay them over the top and show us that. So once again, once this finishes, we're going to have that ability in any kind of a meeting to look at this report, go in through Adaptive, make a change, come back here, hit refresh, and see the impact of the change. This has audit capabilities, you know, making auditing much more efficient, reconciliation of spreadsheets. You can lay one spreadsheet over the top of another, you know, last month's over this month's, helping you extend off your variance analysis. There's a lot of power in this. And I'm sorry this is running slow. That's actually a problem with my Microsoft Word on my computer. It likes to get hung up there. But here it's verifying that the things that we linked in this report have been done. And now notice everything inside the spreadsheet. It shows me cell by cell what changed, what did not change. The dates have changed. This number changed. And if it's 10 places, it changed all 10. And while the number didn't change the direction of the increase, or if it did, that would be great, red mined out, and it would say decrease on it, but it does show the change of the number through there. And so with all that, then that's a highlight, end users view, if you will, of using Adaptive in a variety of ways to do more, faster budgeting, more versions, all at a fingertip. And I'd love to open this up for any questions that anybody may have.
Thanks, Randy. We really appreciate the overview of this solution, and hopefully it highlights some of the problems that can be solved in an easy and efficient way with less complexity than some of the things we've all used and played with in Excel spreadsheets. So as Randy said, we'll open it up for questions. If you want to just put them in the chat box.
Hey, Terry. I don't see any questions at the moment, but again, anyone who has a question, there's a GoToWebinar question box. Feel free to type it in there and we'll get those answered for you. Okay, we just had one come in. Could you go over how labor and HR costs are handled? How granular?
Yeah, great question. And so it can be as granular as you would like. In this particular example, I have a couple examples here. So this is the one that we looked at to where we were doing it by person. So as I open this one up, Here we have different elements. We allow what we call splits. It's simply right-clicking. You wanted to add a new record. But when you set this up, this is just what we call, it's one of our sheets. You would have the columns that you want people to fill in, basically. That's just part of the setup. Also, if you have them to where they're controlled entry type of things where you allow them to pick this information out. All that is just part of the setup, part of your configuration. If they change, of course, they become, you would go in and maintain only those particular areas. And then behind here, then the formulas that are written for everything. This is also up to you as to how granular you want to calculate things. If you're a government contractor, you might do things more with a pool number or use a certain rate or such. Well, of course, you can do that. You could load those rates in from another system or such, just as an example. That's all up to you. That's one example, but another example, again, if I'm understanding your question correctly, we have, at this department, I don't have access to that. So you're seeing some security here. Notice I don't have hourly personnel sheet available. But by clicking here, I will now change my department to the total company so I can see everything. And we'll see some other sheets now that show up. And here's my, where's my personnel? Hourly personnel. There we go. If I open this one, you'll see a completely different layout. We're now doing this more by role. We're budgeting for hours instead of a percentage allocation. Or this is actually hours. This is actually FTEs. You could also put hours, and we see a lot of that times with project planning at the personnel level. If you supply people as your revenue stream and you assign them to certain things, you could actually be assigning them hours by task or whatever that may be. But here you'll notice that this is much more abbreviated. And also, if I look back at the details, the list of what we're calculating is also much more abbreviated. We're using some sort of a load factor to do our benefits calculation, our benefits per hour calculation, a tax calculation, things like that. As you'll notice on this case, this is not what I would call a cash flow model. This has nothing to do with how the cash is going out. When you do it by person, and you can do those declining calculations like a FICA calc, that translates directly into an accurate cash flow as well. But hopefully I'm answering your question here. It's really up to you how you wish to configure the level of detail that you would like to be able to plan at in Adaptive. This is a higher level example. The other one was a low level example. And you can go even lower if you wish. Is that helpful, I hope?
I think so. We had one more question come in. How is data brought into the solution?
Okay, great question there as well. We always get asked that. We do have integration capabilities. We have an API. I would say that's more of an IT tool, but you can write an integration against anything. We have what we call our manual importing capabilities. And so this is like flat file downloads. And a lot of people already have them. So it's very non-intrusive to just use a download that you're already using. And basically the process is going to map your data from the flat file into Adaptive. That's really what we're doing, is doing a mapping exercise. The other element is actually our data designer. And this is where you can even automate those connections. You can always run things on demand in Adaptive. But here, just as a real quick example, because I know we're up against our time here, I'll use Dynamics as an example. Here's where I connect to the data source. And notice this is actually connected to a live Microsoft Dynamics software instance. You choose, it's looking right at the data tables. And it's I'm able to choose what tables I want to use and what I don't want to use. So things like my account master here. Notice I'm looking at the actual fields in that table. And when I go to choose those fields, I can open up the table. It will expose the fields, and I can simply select the fields that I want to use or I do not need to use. That's step one, setting up the data, basically where it comes from. Step two then is doing the mapping of how do you get it into Adaptive. and I'll concentrate on this area here. There's cleansing and such that we can do, but for bringing accounts in, it's mattered. This value, the staging value, this is what's coming from Great Plains. Notice that I can bring it in from adaptive, or I'm telling it where I want it to go in adaptive, and I can change the name even if I want to. I can also do many to many type of, or many to one type of summaries here as well. Here on the level mapping, notice that I have a finance with a finance department name in the source, but I also have a GP200 that is also being mapped to finance. You just do the mapping one time. If something comes in where it doesn't know how to map it, it would look like this. And you would have the ability to come in and map it. This is in a sense your exception table. And by clicking on it, I can actually auto map the selected element. It will go through and it'll find the match for adaptive. I guess didn't like what I did there. I must have answered the question right, but it'll map it back in, no issues. It's very self-contained. And then the last piece is then I want to actually load the information in. And again, in this case, I will, if I want to schedule something, I pick the task because a load process might be, I might want to load HR and my sales data all at the same time. And I can do that. So you can actually pick a number of tasks. And then if you want to schedule them, it's just a matter of dragging the scheduler out, dropping it, filling in the clock information, hit close, and now we'll run my clockwork for you. So hopefully that shows a little bit of the integration as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Randy. And for companies that have a lot of experience with data, pretty straightforward, as Randy said. If you need help with it as well, we have a small team that just focuses on mapping to your dynamic solution and have a lot of experience. So with that, I want to thank everyone for attending today. And as a next step and takeaway, if you're looking at the budgeting forecasting solution and trying to make it more simple for your business, whether it's this solution or any of the other solutions we work with, please do reach out to Velocio directly because we have a lot of experience in understanding your business, understanding dynamics as well, and then we can basically point you in a few different directions or one direction to help you in your journey to a more efficient budgeting process. So please reach out to your client success manager or myself and from the reply on the email. Also, for anybody in your organization, the session was recorded, so if you'll be getting a link with that. And thanks again for your time today.